there's a St Johnstone supporter, a Dunfermline supporter, a Rangers supporter, and a Hearts supporter all having a pint together in a Stirling Albion pub. And the Hearts supporter turns to the Rangers supporter and says, Alec, is this some sort of joke, or is this just another rambling anecdote at the start of one of your really boring podcasts? And I'd say, David, you're right, it's the rambling anecdote, because if I was going to do a joke, don't tell me. If you're going to do a joke, Alec, you would have announced big news at left back for Rangers, big transfer news about the Rangers left back, and then went, Robbie Fraser is going to Dunfermline, when everybody's expecting you to talk about Jefte, unless they'd seen any one of your pods before and they'd know exactly what you were going to do. It's no funny. I wish you would stop doing it. In fact, just stop podding altogether. And I'd say, well, the thing is, Davey, I don't even know if you're in this anecdote. I've misplaced you here, because you definitely came to some of the nights out that we had in Stirling, but I don't know if you were in the Albion bar in Stirling. I don't know if you were in there, so you might not even be part of this anecdote. And David, you didn't actually do the website thing that I met all the other guys. He was a school friend of the Dunfermline supporter who actually stayed in Linlithgow, so we'd have a night out in Linlithgow. And Davey, the Jambo, he had a great job. He had the kind of job where, a proper job that if you hadn't been kidding yourself on, that you're some sort of sports journalist or football writer or something like that. You had none of those delusions. You could just have concentrated on having that proper job that Davey had, whereas the rest of us, we'd met up in the kind of glory days, the 2 minutes of glory days before the dot-com bubble went bust at the turn of the millennium, where you actually got paid. I think it was about 2 months or something, for writing about football, writing about your football team, doing 2,000-word articles on the internet about your favourite covered enclosures, coo sheds, and the Ayrshire Juniors and stuff like that. That I used to get away with doing it. You'd actually get money for it back then. Didn't last long, but God, it was glorious. And they'd have little conventions. This was From the Terraces, or From the Terrace it was called. And they'd have these wee conventions where they would get everybody together. They wanted a supporter, a fan media, a fan writer, one for every club in England and every club in Scotland, and a Swansea, Cardiff and Wrexham one as well. I did that impersonate a Wolves, but I actually got a couple of lines in the Guardian, the actual newspaper, the Guardian. I've been on the Guardian sports website a few times, but through When Saturday Comes stuff, but the actual Guardian, broadsheet newspaper, I had a couple of lines in there where I was pretending to be a Wolves supporter, because they were doing some sort of preview of the coming season. They wanted the fans' point of view, so they wanted a few lines from every fan of every Premier League team, English Premier League team, and they didn't have a Wolves supporter. The Wolves supporter had called in sick or something, so they just, Alec, do you want to do it? I was, I just talked about Alec Ray for a while, and that was fine. So it was interesting days, and to have these wee kind of get-togethers every now and then. I met the Dunfermline supporter and the St Johnstone supporter, and they would go to Scotland games together and stuff like that. So I say, it started doing about the kind of turn of the early 2000s or something like that, and then we just kept long after we'd managed to crash the website. Long after we'd run that into the ground, we would still meet up for pints every now and then. So we'd have a wee night out in Glasgow, a night out in Edinburgh, a night out in Linlithgow with the Dunfermline supporter stayed, and a couple of nights out in Perth. Not enough, because Perth's a great place for a drink, but I think Linlithgow's a really great place for a drink. But Stirling was the main one, because it's kind of equidistant. For the train, we'd all finish our real jobs that let us carry on with that funded our delusions about writing about football and stuff like that. And maybe a Friday night, maybe once every couple of months, we'd Friday night head for Stirling most of the time. We'd meet up there, and the first pub we'd go to, and I don't think if it's closest to the station, but it's certainly the bottom of the hill in Stirling. No, the one the castle at the top of it. Certainly down towards the bottom of the hill, and I think it was also because it was the kind of pub where the 2 pint maximum, and once it got late tea time, you were okay. You were interesting visitors, and the locals were all kind of, but once it got to 7:30, it was like, I don't give a flying what it is you do for a living and why is it all meeting up. You just get yourself back to Edinburgh or Glasgow, where you're comfy. So they got very local once it got to about kind of 7:30, so that's fine. Just a couple of pints in there, and the banter, it was coruscating wit. It was Dorothy Parker, Algonquin, unbelievable the banter we would have. You probably couldn't keep up. You know, be sharp enough. You know, have a razor sharp wit. You wouldn't have the razor sharp wit that we had, but we would, anytime MD said, do you want to meet up in Stirling, this time, when we're emailing back and forth, somebody would go, but what if the Alloa boys are coming in? What if the Alloa boys? Because one night, what happened? All right, what happened was we were in one night, and I don't know if it's a barmaid, because it's all these pubs I'm talking about. They all seem to have, in my mind, it's probably just all imagination. Maybe it's a horseshoe-shaped bar in the Albion. It'll still be there. It will still be there. The Albion bar. It was all covered in Stirling Albion memorabilia. It's a pub in Stirling called the Albion. It was kind of white rough cast outside with red trim. You go in and the walls are just absolutely decorated with Stirling Albion programmes for doing the years, with newspaper cuttings that have been framed pictures of players and team groups and all that, and pictures of Anfield's, the previous stadium. I never got to go to Anfield when Stirling Albion were playing there. I've been to the site of it. It's now an old folks' home. You know what I mean? And that move your Zimmer hen. That's where the penalty spot used to be. You're not even visiting here at all. Just get out. Oh, security, get this guy out. It was interesting, but we'd be going there because we're all supporters of different clubs who met quite a lot in Scottish football. This was before you had enough pints to start talking about music and TV and your feelings and stuff. You'd get the FITBA aggression out the way early, and we would use Stirling Albion. The fact that none of us supported Stirling Albion or knew that much about them, we'd use that as a kind of, like the steers get into the Bulls, to calm down the Bulls in the Fiesta, The Sun Also Rises. So we'd go in there and we'd just start, who do you think that is? What ground's that? They're playing it in that one. Oh, I remember him, that manager. All that kind of stuff. It was quite good. But at one point, I don't know if it's a horseshoe bar, it's a completely round bar. So you see the barmaid up the back, or it's an older lady at the far side of the bar, sitting on a stool at the far side of the bar, but she just said in a kind of gravelly voice to somebody that was we could still hear what she was saying. It was, that'll do me, I'm going to get out of here because I've heard the Alloa boys are coming. I heard the Alloa boys are coming in tonight. And it was, right, you're in Stirling. And we're thinking, God, wow, we're out in the sticks now because we're staying. I mean, I'm from Dross, I don't really think I was in the sticks, but they'll all probably wish they stayed in Edinburgh or Glasgow for a good night out, but not in Alloa. Going to Stirling, for some folk was a big night out as well. But apparently there'd been trouble, so any time we were going, you want to meet in Stirling? Oh, the Alloa, but it's pathetic, absolutely pathetic. But I feel as if a voice from the future should have come in. And anytime my friends were quite happy talking about this. We didn't know at this point in time what was round the corner for Rangers and how we were going to be. I feel as if a voice for the future should have been saying, "Oh, I like the Alloa boys are going to give you, they're going to get you. Don't laugh about it because they will give you the biggest kicking emotionally, spiritually of your entire life. The Alloa boys are coming to get you further down the line, boy." But also a voice from the past. I was affected at the time by the woman saying that, because I kind of knew what she was. I had an image ready to place on the kind of foreboding that she put in her voice when talking about the Alloa boys coming in to Stirling. And it was at that point, I've only been to Alloa twice. I've only set foot in the place twice in my life, and the first time was, I'm sure it must be 99-2000 season, perhaps the previous season, but I think it might have been in the 1999 side of the 99-2000 season, where another friend of mine, even now I feel terrible saying, used to think, well, with Rangers, going to watch Rangers, we're not going to get to see a lot of these grounds, the lower league grounds. And the lower league was like an undiscovered country, the lower leagues. I know, just even unintentional patronising of folk just leads to, karma gets you eventually. So Rangers, still, David Murray still doing the business at that point in time as far as everyone was concerned, winning the league every season. They missed out that one in 98, which is a bit hurtful, but we still win the league every season. So Rangers didn't need me. I would only go to the home games, go to Hampden. I'd kind of stopped doing away games at that point in time. So if Rangers were away from home, my mate and I, or were playing on the Sunday perhaps, my mate and I still of an age where we want to go to all the football we possibly can. Well, let's go and see. We'll pick a ground every week that we've not been to, because Rangers will get these teams in the cups, perhaps domestic cups every now and then. But even then, by the late 90s into 2000s, the teams, they'd be moving. These clubs would be moving cup games, home games against Rangers to bigger stadiums to get better gate receipts. So it was just a matter of doing all the grounds. Just want to do all the league grounds in Scotland, because there was no pyramid system then. You could really do all the league grounds in Scotland, and that would be it. So we went to Alloa one day in this kind of quest of ours. We went to Alloa to go to Recreation Park, Alloa, and it was in the winter. I don't know if it's November or early in the new year. And don't know if it's because of what happened later on in life, but I think about it now, this pub was just desolate, in terms of the interior, and just, I think it's before the smoking ban. When was the smoking ban? I don't know, but it was like with Neil and I, where they go to the Crow, and was it fly blowing nicotine stained lung that Paul McGann's voiceover is describing it as. It had that kind of feel about it. I certainly see it that way. And we'd arrived in Alloa, we couldn't find Recreation Park, and it's days before the mobile phones. Or maybe we did have mobile phones at that point, but they certainly weren't the ones you could look up, Google Maps and that on it. Did Google even exist? I don't. So we're wanting a pint before the game kicks off. We're in Alloa. It's not going to be that bad. In my recollection, it's like a pre-war scheme, like a council scheme. Kind of grey render houses with brutally black slate roofs, and they're in a square. And in the middle of this square, instead of a kid's play park or a kid's football pitch or something like that, there's a pub. And that's how, it's probably, but again, I might be getting confused because in my memories, the bar within the pub is square and it's in the middle of the floor. So you can get served on four sides and the barman's kind of walking. There was just one barman at this point in time, at 2 o'clock or 1:30, whatever time it was. And he's dotting about, either, but there was only like kind of four worthies sitting in the corner, and it was American Werewolf in London stuff. The saloon doors are flapping as the place goes quiet when these two strangers walk. And I've been on the other side of this. I've been the guy, I've done it on podcasts and what have you, when I'm sitting going, oh, you're so middle class, oh, I can't be bothered, you're, oh, Mr. Posh Boy, or whatever like that. There's certain folk come across, and it's the way I feel about Jack Butland, what is he talking like that for? He sounds like a douche, but this was me. We were the exotic we were the fresh meat. We were like the guys in Trainspotting the American Tourist into that boozer and getting leathered in the first Trainspotting film. But it's kind of corner, I think, the door, and suddenly the whole bar's in front of you, and everybody just turns to look. And most of them are sitting in bar stools, running about the bar, and they all look like cigarettes that drink a lot. Their complexion is just tobacco. Kind of my ambition at that point in time. That was what I wanted my complexion to be as well. And we wanted a pint anyway, and it's Alloa. I'm assuming we're actually in Alloa, so it's Alloa Breweries. This is a time in my life where I thought Tennent's Lager was the business. If it was the nicest thing I could see in life at that age, kind of from my late teens up until probably about 30, was the big red tea. Tennent's Lager did me absolutely fine. I loved it. And my snobbery then was like Alloa Brewery, Belhaven, oh God. My mate drank heavy, but we went in. We're going to get pints in anyway, but we didn't know where the recreation park was. We didn't know how to get there. We thought, let's not waste time. Let's kill two birds with one stone. Get the drink in. We're either going to find recreation park first or a pub where we'll ask for directions to recreation park. And my mate kind of went, I thought, I don't know about this. This is a bit local. Maybe we shouldn't bother. But we went up and got the drinks. You're getting the pints in, and it was so. Any idea? What's the directions? How do you get to Recreation Park, mate? And it was that kind of Recreation Park. It's Appy's voice. So the worthies turned around. What? Recreation? You're in Alloa and you want to go and see Alloa Athletic? What's wrong with you, kind of thing? Aye, Recreation. But just want to go to Recreation. Just we're going to the FITBA. You got the FITBA? You don't get any of that at Recreation Park. Get you in Rab. Superb, man. He's telling these guys a new one. Let's get their wallets or whatever. And that was right, fine. You've got to take that in the chin. Aye, that's fine. No, but we're just actually going to go to the game today. We just want to tick it off a list or whatever like that. Just whatever they get. I can tell you where Recreation Park is. And he's looking at me there. I'm like, what's going on here? What's the big build up? But the game's off. It's postponed. I can through here with your Glasgow accents or your West Coast accents. You got to see Alloa Athletic, and you've turned up. The game's not even on. It'd just been a late cancellation. They knew about it. I don't know how. I seem to remember at one point they're sitting down. I just get my pints and no believing the guy. Just still no believing the guy, and sitting down in a wee corner table. And I think it was grandstand or something. He's like pointing up to his screen. There you go. Hey, that's your game there. That's the PP. Is up the, and all the worthies are kind of Muppets coming through here, thinking they can go and see Alloa Athletic. So that was it was quite brutal. It was quite a brutal day, and it seemed to be like a wood panelling all around the place, and all these it's like a black carpet, and I feel as if there was no windows in the place, like a proper Glasgow pillbox boozers. I don't think that's true. I don't think it was that bad in terms of when it was just the way we were feeling kind of bleak and all that. And I was like, I'm like, we're going to go though. I'm going to go and see this place. Going to go and find Recreation Park just to double check the games actually. But the guy he showed it on the telly, but we drank up and away we went. I don't know what we said or whatever on the way out, or what was said to us. But I remember finding the guy's directions were good, and the game was off. And I don't think it was snowing in it; was just freezing. The park was solid. It was a grass park then. And the desperation I had, it was like a foreign country. The lower leagues, I say, I'd been, I'd been to Italy. I think at this point I'd been to Italy and seen Serie B and Serie A fit, but I don't think I'd seen the Bundesliga, and that was a couple of years later before I went to Bundesliga. But I like the idea of just seeing different clubs all over the world and just to get a better knowledge. And again, that's how I ended up doing work for this website and that, because I knew all about different grounds and stuff, because I'd been there and experienced them and I had stuff to say about them. And I had this fascination, so I was determined just to look inside. It was still quite exciting in the days. Still quite exciting. And I'd been reading about it in Simon Ingles's various books with the football grounds of Great Britain. And I'd seen photographs. I'd seen it in the telly as well, like the Scottish Cup rounds. I think there's various programmes in the telly in the days that give you the goals for all the leagues in Scotland. But these grounds I hadn't been, they just looked so enticing. They looked so interesting, so fascinating, so romantic almost. Oh, I can't wait to see that. And the thing I always remembered for any pictures of games at Recreation Park Alloa was the kind of cowshed terrace opposite their main stand had a kind of a fascia that was crisscross kind of lattice work just hanging down off the front of the roof, which was reminiscent, a kind of pastiche, if you like, of the crisscross balcony work in Archibald Leitch's main stand at Ibrox. Also, a bit more being in the fascia of a roof. It was actually reminding me of the Stade du Manoir in Colombes in Paris, where the 1938 World Cup final was played. Italy beating Hungary, where Eric Liddell, the Chariots of Fire, where the guys ran in the Paris Olympics, that stadium, which I've been in the pitch in there actually, got in there as well on another trip a few years earlier. So I thought, this was what I was thinking. I'm comparing, a place that Juice Fontaine has played and all that, and there's been a World Cup final played to Recreation Park Alloa, but I just had, there was all corrugated fencing round about it, and I've seen it. I'm sure it was the night we get beaten the Petrofac Training Cup semi-final. Behind that stand now, or that enclosure opposite the main stand, I think it was a KFC or something. I would notice that, wouldn't I? But I think it's a retail park or something. It wasn't there. It wasn't there at this time when my mate and I was clambering about this. My mate's going, what are you doing? And I just want to get a look in through the thing. I want to see the park itself. I want to see what it looks like, and looking through this kind of corrugated metal and climbing through these brambles. And it was a hill, but it was also a kind of hollow. And when I think back on it, it's really bleak, but I had no idea just how bleak things were going to get. We went back to the pub. For some mental reason, we went back to that pub. I think it must have been, did you have to get a bus? Is there a train station in Alloa? I think you had to get a bus into Stirling, or did we get a taxi or something? But anyway, we went back to the boozer. We would be taking the slagging, but this time it was a lot busier, so we never get noticed. And I remember sitting at a wee corner table or something, and then just noticing up in this wood panelling round about us, there was all these framed ticket stubs, and it was Dunfermline. I'm like, what? Dunfermline Athletic against Falkirk, and then somebody had written in 0-3 and a big smiley next to the scoreline, and there was all these other Falkirk, wee bits of newspaper, and that was off. And I'm like, in my naivety, in my arrogance, my hypocrisy, I'm from Ayrshire, I should be supporting Kilmarnock or, at a stretch, Ayr United. But I'm thinking, folk from Alloa are all going to be supporting Alloa. Why is it? Oh, that's a Stirlingshire thing. So you think, I can cope with the fact that there's Rangers and Celtic fans in Falkirk that aren't supporting Falkirk. But somehow there's, in Alloa, you're not supporting Alloa Athletic, you're supporting Falkirk. And of course, the big rivalry is with Dunfermline. That Stirlingshire Fife thing. And this is just one of the days, a learning day, as they say. I was like, and I thought this is kind of bleak. You're learning the kind of stratified nature of Scottish football, and how wherever you go in it, it's just hate. Everybody hates everybody. And the Dunfermline Falkirk thing, I think I would have known about that rivalry at the time, but even in Alloa, and of course you get Stenhousemuir, Larbert, folk for Larbert that probably support Falkirk, folk for Larbert who support Rangers or Celtic, as well. And they're missing out in East Stirlingshire as well, who were in Falkirk. My mate and I, we'd been to First Park. We went to the last ever game at First Park. And it was against East Fife, Stirlingshire Fife thing again. And because we'd been to an East Stirlingshire East Fife game at the First Park about 10 years earlier. It was one of our greatest experiences ever. Didn't involve Rangers or movies. Going to that one, it was fantastic. So the last ones, we have to go. And I've got a bit of the old sleeper in the terracing of First Park there. But between the two times we went, there was a retail park had been set up next to that. We went to a Frankie and Benny's for our first couple of pints after that last ever game at First Park, and things were changing, but I didn't realise that Alloa was going to become something that was not the hollow, the low, the scrambling about in the bramble bushes trying to see through a corrugated fence was no as desperate and no as awful and embarrassing as things would ever get for a Rangers supporter when it came to Alloa Athletic. How you doing, folks? Welcome to your Fatec. Russell Martin, in an attempt to win his first domestic game as Rangers manager, has decided to drop down a couple of divisions. Preview pod coming to you in association with Jersnet. Jersnet, it's on right now as I'm recording this, and it's Colin and Ben. So that's bound to be an absolute cracker. Watch Jersnet. I'm sponsored by that, and I'm also sponsored by not just being a loyal British citizen, just by being loyal. A lot of you kind of plastic bulldogs out there. Well, I'm pure British now. I'm total loyalist, but you're pretending you're in America or Canada or Australia to watch on RTV the other night, aren't you? You're pretending to watch that. No me. I'm not even when it comes to filling in a menu or VPN or whatever. VJ Day. Never mind VPN. VJ Day. That's behind me there. That's pictures of the Aloha Stadium. We're playing Aloha Stadium. You think I'm making a pun? No, it's Aloha Stadium in Hawaii, where they had the NFL Pro Bowl. It traditionally used to be there. For some reason, the algorithm on my phone seems to think I'm interested in stadium stuff, and it sent me a thing today saying that the Aloha Stadium is going to be redeveloped. They've got planning permission finally, because there's been nothing going on there for a while, to reduce the size of the stadium to make it inhabitable again. But it's right next to Pearl Harbor, very close to Pearl Harbor. That's the start of the VJ thing. I'm just remembering Davy Smith, my grand's second husband, who I knew him into his 90s. Davy, he died well into his 90s. I grew up hearing tales of not of the war. We just talked about all the films that he'd seen. When the guys were in the mess in Burma, and that's his medals up there. If you can just see them, I don't know, but he gave them to me, but it's the service medal and the war medal, the standard stuff. No for anything brave. Didn't do anything particularly brave. He served in the RAF ground staff in Burma during the conflict with Japan, or that arena of the World War conflict. But he didn't do anything particularly brave. He just, as a teenage boy, got on a train for Stevenson up to Glasgow, enlisted, and then got on a boat and sailed directly towards people who wanted to kill him and everybody else in Britain. Nothing particularly brave, obviously, and he stayed there for 6 years while that was going on. So everybody who's celebrating VJ Day, thoughts are with you. But I'm proper British. Me, I'm going to use it all. Oh, I'm in Canada. While you're watching the game, I would never deny that I'm sitting in dear old Blighty. I'm not letting all the messages that I got on Tuesday night and Wednesday saying I watched it in RTV. There wasn't any buffering at all. The picture was perfect, big man. Just get it round you. No, I'm not letting that get to me at all. Especially the ones coming from the Bears replying to the actual official Rangers Twitter account tweet saying how you can get your money back from Solid Sport of Sweden. I need for that. I just watched it on RTV and picture was absolutely perfect. It's just I'm not ashamed to be British. That's all. It's just that I'm not ashamed. Brexit means Brexit. Stop the small boats, except the ones that went to Dunkirk and Operation Dynamo. And Jockey Bjorklund and Jonas Tern make me proud to buy Swedish. Smooth as a Volvo that's crashing like His Majesty's Royal Navy. I don't have a problem with buffering. I just don't sink. It's out of sync already, is it? It probably is out of sync already. So it's the League Cup last 16, and it was when we get into the last 16 of the Europa League last season's second season in the trot that Philip Clement managed to finish so high in the group that he bypassed the last 32 of the knockout round post-group stage, and he got straight into the last 16. That was the last 16 the League Cup we're playing in on Saturday. The last 16 the Europa League. That was after that we got the opportunity to have a full free week. And that was the next time we played. The last time we played a lower league side in a domestic cup competition at Ibrox. A lower league side we'd met a few times on the journey back. 4 times it was we met Queen's Park in the journey back, and then we played them in the last domestic cup match to be played at Ibrox. I see home wins over Plzen. The home win over Plzen is no longer a complete performance focused on the last 20 minutes, and that was really dodgy as well. Stop there. That was a complete performance. We went 3-0 up early in the second half and just got the subs on, took the foot off the gas to rest players. We shut that game down. We administered the result, as the Italians say. So just things are bad. We're not enjoying the way Rangers are playing just now, but we need to be kind of honest in our assessments. And the home game against Plzen was perfect. They're pretty much on the money for that entire game. So let's not pile it on the way I'm about to pile it on, because Alloa, they're only League One, not a championship like Queen's Park were, but they did inflict also a colossal low on us in a domestic cup competition. Queen's Park at Ibrox, probably the biggest Ibrox low, certainly, in a domestic cup competition. It was great to be there. But over a decade ago, in December 2014, Alan McCoist was our manager. In a competition that I spent 2 decades thinking Rangers would never be in. It was quite a fascinating competition, this Challenge Cup. There we were, having lost the final to Wraith Rovers the previous season at Easter Road on a Sunday after extra time. Was going to be on holiday on the Monday, and the traffic getting back was horrendous. Just a completely awful day. One of the worst moments of the journey back. And here we got the previous season, we'd lost in penalties to Ibrox to Queen of the South, but here we were. This is our third attempt at winning a trophy. We didn't even want to be in, but it was embarrassing not to have won it in our time in the lower leagues. And we're 2-0 up in a semi-final being played at Recreation Park, Alloa, against Alloa Athletic. And there's about 16 minutes to go, and it didn't go to extra time. It didn't go to penalties. We lost 3-2. They put 3 goals past us in the next quarter of an hour. And it's just, that was, for me, that was the worst. That was the representative. Somebody says to you, the banter years, and you immediately think about the stuff that wasn't banter. There's that. There's the day we drew 0-0 with Cowdenbeath at Central Park in the peeing rain, which, if you were there, that was maybe the lowest game for you, because it doesn't have a lot of shelter. Central Park, Cowdenbeath. My mate and I, I'd been to Central Park, Cowdenbeath back in the 80s watching Rangers. I was still at school at the time. Big adventure, genuinely going for Ardrossan through to Cowdenbeath midweek to see his old League Cup group stages. But my mate, he was genuinely trying to get all the grounds done, and he hadn't been to Central. We went back one day, and we again went into the very local pub in Cowdenbeath. It was a sunny day, and the worthies sitting round the bar were taking the mickey at the barman, because the barman, we were asking for a pint of Guinness. And the Guinness is half the day, mate. Maybe I could a can of Guinness, actually. I've got that. And the guys in the pub, the customers were sitting going, boys, there's none of the pumps work. Everything's cans. Just don't listen to him buttering you up. So we just a couple of cans and sat there, but they were nice. So I feel as if I can't really maybe that's why I don't see Cowdenbeath as being the worst. Cowdenbeath at Ibrox was the second worst day for me. One of the days you're sitting there, the crowd, they get 40,000 season tickets sold, but the crowd was about 29,000 at best, I think. Peeing down, freezing, and we won with a Dean Shields deflected shot to 0. And I thought, this is just awful. That felt like you were right halfway between two boats, as in Ricky Fulton's anecdote from Comfort and Joy. It felt as if you were just a long way to go, a long way from the kind of defiant spirit that saw us into our time in the lower leagues, a long way from getting back to the top flight, never mind getting back to the top of the top flight. That was awful. But I think Alloa, Wraith Rovers in the Petrofac Training Cup final, but Alloa in the Petrofac Training Cup semi-final. At the end of drill, it's just like being stuck in a train with a guy who works in the rigs who wants to tell you about his overtime and all that, and just that he's had a few drinks because he's gone up to Aberdeen. You get on a helicopter and stuff. It was that whole kind of oil industry stuff. It was awful. So it was a terrible night. But Alloa, we beat them 7-0 in the Scottish Cup when we when our first season in the lower leagues, 2012-13. I think Paul Hartley was the manager. I beat them 7-0. I thought this maybe that'll be the last of them. We'll never hear from them again, Alloa. But no, it's just so Hefty. That was oh my God. It's weird the way the manager dealt with it, or the head coach dealt with it at the press conference today, the pre-match presser. But the big news, the smart was Rangers Review. I saw on. They were, Chris Jack, friend of Jersnet, really good source. He'd been telling them that Hefty is going to go to Palmeiras for £6 million. £6 million. There's a bit of would you call it? There's little deals going on at both ends of that. I think we're going to get there'll be a knock-on payment to Fluminense, I would imagine. Because we got him, he was on loan at Apoel Nicosia. He was at loan there from Fluminense, so I don't think they'll be due anything, Apoel Nicosia, but we got Hefty for about £680 million. What is he? I think he's 21 years old, £680,000. And the word is we're going to get £6 million for him. And I hope you've got a sell-on clause going on there, because he's probably now going to go for Palmeiras too. I would say Benfica, Porto, or one of the big three or Sporting, one of the big three in Portugal. He'll go there after a couple of seasons for about 20 million, and then he'll have like 2 seasons there, and he'll go to Chelsea for 100 million, and that with that suddenly going buyer's regret over Hefty. The minute I heard that thing with something they say that's a tactic for companies, anybody's retail folk, just put a bigger price on something and folk will go, oh, it must be worth that. Because I, having bemoaned Hefty all season, or the 2 or 3 games he played, slagged them rotten the other night for the first goal we lost, obviously, and another couple of chances that Plzen got from falling asleep at the back. I'm now thinking, maybe we shouldn't sell him. If he's worth £6 million, maybe we shouldn't sell him. The manager's denying he knows anything about it. I think he's making some sort of point today, Russell Martin, about the it not being his department, transfers, but he completely blanked Big Raman when it came to talking about the transfers. But this is a solid source. There's a solid source, Chris Jack, and he's saying it's going to be £6 million. Maybe it's been confirmed as I'm talking to you right now, as I'm recording this. But it's a strange one. A young guy. I think the moustache definitely made him look older. He definitely had that Jogo Bonito thing. It was a totally Brazilian thing. We're running up and down the park. He's got that bounce. Oh, what's the guy's name? The guy that does I think the World Soccer edit. When the World Cup was in Brazil, he was on the telly every second day. He's still on the telly a lot in the BBC. I cannot remember his name. He's a correspondent in Rio, English guy. He stays in Rio, but I remember hearing a podcast with him on it, probably during that World Cup, where he was talking about like his kids and that are Brazilian. He stays there, obviously, and he was saying how like they put E on the end. The Brazilians add E to the end of everything. Well, the striker Fred is actually called Fregi over there. But he says the worst instance is Milli Vanilli. If you're my age, you'll remember the group, or the duo Milli Vanilli. In Brazil, they called them Milli Vanilli. Was it Eminem was M-E-N-E or something like that? It was just total. Everyone's got that wee extra bounce, and that's the Jogo Bonito thing. Like the first time as a kid, really remember in Brazil, of course, was the 1982 World Cup. I saw them in 78 World Cup, but never really stuck in my mind. But the 82 World Cup, that classic team, it's become a cliche now for guys my age to talk about how much they love the Brazil 82 team. But it was the bounce in their step. They literally, as a samba beat, they're moving to these guys. Phenomenal. And Hefty had all that. He just didn't seem to have accuracy. I'm slagging him the other night. Has he ever had in one of my pods recently, has he ever had a assist? Never mind a goal. Well, he did. Apparently he's had 3 assists. I looked it up, and also he scored for us against Aberdeen. We beat Aberdeen 4-0 at Ibrox towards the end of last season. I was at that game, so I had no recollection of it, not his fault. But he's been remembered for falling asleep at the back post a few times, but there's definitely a player in there, as they say, and Palmeiras. Verdão, the big green of Brazil. He's a real boy, and he's going to go to Sao Paulo now. He's moving to Sao Paulo. That'll be strange for him. It's like that time I was playing for the Rangers treble winning team in 92-93, and then Milan picked me up. AC Milan, Fabio Capello's like that big man. Van Basten struggling. Need you in there. And it was fun, great fun. A great couple of years in Milan, winning the Champions League and stuff like that. And then I just thought, no, I'm going to see doing my career back in Scotland, and Hearts come in for me, and it was actually weirder. And more of a cultural shock going to Edinburgh than it is in playing for Milan. Going through Glasgow, because you see Milan on the telly all the time. But you go to Edinburgh, go to Hearts, because nobody heard of Hearts, you know, nobody actually knew what Hearts looked like at that time, and you go to training and stuff, and everyone's got the sauce. You know, you're having a power bar or something like that, but it's got the vinegary brown sauce is on it. It's just actually a different culture. So maybe he'll find that. Maybe it's because it's close enough to make you realise how different it is. He'll find out when he goes to Palmeiras. 3 times Copa Libertadores winners, absolutely colossal club. That it's a bit different, more different than going to Ibrox or going to. He's gone from the red, white, and blue to the green and white as Jefte. If this news is to be believed, we're just waiting for it to be confirmed. And of course, Robbie Fraser has gone to Dunfermline in a permanent deal now, so Yilmaz is wanted out the door. I'd imagine we're going to use some of that to buy ourselves a left back. We need a left back. But although the thing is, the manager wants everybody to play on the wrong foot, so maybe Aaron, Max Aarons is going to go back in at right back. Who knows? Go back in at left back. But aye, so my name's Alec Anderson. May you never lose your temper if you get caught in a barroom fight. May you never lose your woman overnight. May you never lay your head down without a hand to hold. May you never make your bed out in the cold. And I'm talking to you on the eve of Rangers playing Alloa Athletic at Ibrox, open up a whole kind of a horrible feast of horrible memories of our time in the lower leagues. We're playing them at Ibrox in the League Cup last 16, 5:45 p.m. kick-off live on one of these channels. It's actually on the telly as opposed to a streaming service. So that's that's not so bad. He's getting a lot of stick just now as our manager, as per the kind of the fallout of the Motherwell draw on the SPFL opening day. It's coming to a head. I think something has to give for Russell Martin and his team. Alloa hopefully are a kind of valuable exercise along the way, and bringing things to a healthy head. We start seriously clicking, hopefully, but most of us, a quick straw poll of facial expressions at Ibrox would indicate our watching our defence get worse and seen us getting away with it in 3 or 4 European games so far, and arguably in our trip to Motherwell too. We get Bruges on Tuesday, Club Bruges on Tuesday. We'll get Celtic the last day of the month. Maybe even it's against the Paisley Buddies at their disrespectfully windy tunnel of a wee ground next Sunday. We feel we're due a scalping right now. We feel we're due a defeat of heavy proportions. A defeat that properly, officially, a lot of people are saying we're out of the league title race already, which is nonsense. But we might be due a defeat that kind of officially, properly puts us out of a competition, be that the Champions League against Bruges or tomorrow against Alloa Athletic. The XG in our European, you see the Patrick Kasky stats. Frankie put it up on the Jersnet Twitter account, retweeted Patrick Kasky, the guru of Jers stats. He was saying that was the second worst XG we'd ever had against us in a European match since XG times began. I don't know when that was, but the Liverpool game where we get beat 7-1 wasn't even in the top 5. That was the thing I found most interesting. But Napoli, I think it was when Napoli beat us 3-0 at Ibrox, that was the worst. And then we had Plzen, the Plzen game the other night. We only lost it 2-1, so it's pretty decent. I think it shows maybe what, damn lies and statistics. Liverpool's XG wasn't in the top 5. It's just they were absolutely lethal in front of goal. Mo Salah certainly was anyway. That horrible night. But people are starting to worry that we're giving up too many chances, and it can't go on like this. We need, I think if we go at this game, it's going to be the nadir of the promised pain of the Russell Martin system kicking in, taking hold. I'm hoping we've already had that he's actually losing so many chances, conceding so many chances to Panathinaikos in the first half at Ibrox, Panathinaikos in the away leg in Athens, to Motherwell in a 1-1 draw, conceding so many chances to Plzen the other night in a game that we lost 2-1, having been 3-0 up from the first leg. We're kind of getting away with, it will rectify this, the system will click in, and we've actually got away with it, having a serious doing. If it isn't, then okay, the end is nigh for Russell Martin. Will soon have another head coach to blame for everything. There is something else. There's something else in my head. It's a film. It's a TV story, or God forbid, perhaps actually, I might even have read a book or something at one time. It's other than the Karate Kid. I've got the paint the fence, wash the car as a kind of metaphor. Something in the recesses of my mind, a skull which can be used as a much better metaphor for what I think's happening just now. I can never think what it is. It could be any kind of training montage from the the million dude films I've watched, action films, dude films, yeah, lots of dudes in leather, taking it deep, going all the way to end up being much better than they thought they could be. But maybe it's the pain is just weakness leaving the body, that kind of douchebag nonsense that nobody ever says in hospitals and things like that. But maybe that can actually apply here. A bunch of adults in a male sports team, Lyle Cameron, post-match in Plzen, he was certainly believed in the system. He was talking at length about, they kept repeating the fact that the manager, Lyle Cameron, who scored his first goal for Rangers against Plzen, and certainly saved that match on the night, it turned out, as did Jack Butland. It's Jack Butland's Champions League just now. Other folk are just watching it at the moment. But Lyle Cameron was talking about how the players are all working towards what the manager wants them to do, what the head coach wants them to do, and he was talking about it genuinely as if they all really know what it is. They're getting the instructions, and he's quite confident that they will get there, and it will start getting a lot better when they get to executing the man's plans, Russell Martin's plans on the pitch. I saw it myself the other night, if I'm being honest with you, a couple of times where Rangers, and I think Russell Martin talked about it in his own post-match pressers, where he's very, very self-effacing, very honest. We've had Michael Beale and sometimes Clement hiding behind the stats, possession stats, so Russell Martin certainly can't do that, but they would also hide behind, well, we've got so far in this and so far in that. If Russell Martin was that kind of person, it would be, we have just got ourselves through to the playoff round of the Champions League, the biggest competition in club football. And we've got through 2 rounds of it, really difficult ties that nobody expected us to win. Well, certainly the Panathinaikos tie, and he's no hiding behind that at all. The first thing he talks about in the Czech Republic the other night was the fact that we gave up too many chances and that we kept turning the ball over when we had possession in really good areas. And I saw it myself. I mentioned in my post-match reaction pod. I saw it attacking players. Just you could see it all opening up in front of you. But you had Cyril Dessers in the early part of the match knocking the ball back to nobody. When he was in Acres, he could probably time to have a shot himself. Plenty of time, plenty of space. He was being found in the Diomande before he actually overlapped for the goal that we scored. He had an overlap in the first half where he's in plenty of space and the ball's been knocked up from wide and he's gone through the middle. You could see times where it was just down to the execution, which is indicative of a brand new head coach who's got a whole lot of new players arriving and trying to settle into Ibrox as a new environment for them, and he's trying to unlearn the old ways, the ways that have been costing us so many points against the teams we're expected to beat in domestic football. That's been going on for years, and he keeps hinting at that in his post-match pressers as well, his pre-match pressers. He was talking about it today as well, Russell Martin, that there's stuff here that's not been done right for years, I think he was saying today, and everybody at the club knows it, so we're trying to get that. That's what I've been thinking. I know the argument just now is, well, Dundee and Motherwell have both got a whole lot of new players learning a new system and a new manager, and they've taken points off us in both their league games so far, but they're not trying to reach the heights we are, and in many ways they're kind of quite close to where they're expected to be, Dundee and Motherwell. I know they've got their teams that have won the league in the past, once each, 30 years apart, years ending in 2. But to stay in the top flight is probably their ambition. Short term, that's their immediate ambition. Top 6 is the big ambition. They're not expected to go any further than that anytime soon, whereas we are trying to win everything in Scotland, because what we don't win, Celtic wins, and we're also trying to get ourselves into the Champions League to represent in Europe as well. That takes you have to dig a lot deeper to rectify the stuff that's been going wrong with that. I feel you got a whole new lot of players, a lot of new players trying to learn what it is to be at Ibrox. Then they've got to learn Russell Martin's system, and the existing players are trying to unlearn what they've been taught by Beale and Clement and maybe even Gio, while trying to bed in with a whole bunch of new players and a new manager's blueprint. So it's bound to take a while. And we've been told by everybody that, Russell podcasters from Southampton, from Swansea, from his previous clubs, that this is what happens with Russell Martin. It's a bit dodgy to start with, but eventually it gets there. I thought, I'm talking to you 3 days after Rangers lost their first match under Russell Martin at their 6th attempt, enshrouding it in Champions League kind of progress, and first time he's conceded more than a single goal for the first time. Russell Martin, that's the first time he's conceded more than a single goal in a game, and he enshrouded that in XG stats that say we should have conceded 3 or 4. And we're on the eve of Russell Martin side participating in their 3rd competition. And if you want to throw in friendlies, they're 4th oeuvre genre, milieu, mise en scène, if you will, as I continue to enshroud my basic ignorance and general stupidity in words I had to look up in the dictionary, and then write down. I still know more about how to set up a defence than Russell Martin, though. I really don't. But so far, it's just all part of what we're told, what would happen, and I'm hoping it's going to turn around soon. Our big beef, we kind of blow away the wee teams. We haven't done it consistently enough for years. And you know what we remind me of? What Rangers remind me of right now? What Rangers remind me of when they get to that point where they're dropping points at Dens, they're dropping points at home to Dundee this season. Rugby Park especially it's been an absolute nightmare for years. It's Scotland at 5 straight World Cups. I don't remember 74, but I remember 78, 82, 86 and 90, all the World Cups. When Scotland qualified for those 5 straight World Cups, it was never, the big teams were never really the problem. We took a 4-1 scalping off Brazil 82. But what really did for us, as always, was we beat New Zealand 5-2 in our first game. New Zealand were the minnows of the group at that point. And the Soviet Union, I think the Soviet Union beat them 3-0, which meant, we'd conceded more goals. I think that was the barometer. Maybe the Soviet Union beat them 4-0. It was always what we did against the minnows of the group was always the problem. There was no minnows in the group in 1986. It was Uruguay, Denmark, and West Germany. And we only lost to West Germany and Denmark by a single goal each. This is the Danes that are going to go on, and the Danish Dynamite side, absolutely amazing team. West Germany are on their way to the final, of course, the 3 straight World Cup finals. This was the middle one, but Uruguay, but because there's no minnow in the group, we come up against them last, and they go down to 10 men like in the first minute of the game, and we've only got to beat them but of course we can't. We can't beat them. It's always when we're favourites that we can't handle it, Scotland. And I used to, Costa Rica beating us 1-0 in the first game of Italia 90. Yeah, we only lose 1-0 to Brazil. We beat the Swedes. 1974, we draw with Brazil, we draw with Uruguay. But it's Zaire. We only beat Zaire 2-0. Brazil, who has got through in second place in that group, to Yugoslavia, they beat Zaire 3-0. I think Yugoslavia beat them 9-0. But we beat them by a goal less than Brazil. That's why we went out of that tournament. I don't see Peru as a minnow. They beat us in the 78 World Cup, but only drawn 1 each with Iran, who weren't very strong at that time. That's what's cost us. We go and beat the Dutch, who are en route to their second straight final. We go and beat them, of course, but it's always the minnow that upsets us, that we don't do the business against Scotland. And I feel as if and I used to always think, invariably, most of those World Cup, we got the minnow team first. And by about, by the time it came to 1990, I thought we need to get ourselves psyched up for that game more than any other. That the other games take care of themselves, especially if you're Scottish, where who you're looking at, nobody messes with me with impunity. Whereas I think we need to actually get ourselves set up for the total raging, psychotic, let's do everything we can to murder this mob for the game against the minnow side. The side that was the minnow in the group, destroy them, put 6-7 past them. That's your World Cup finals right there. Get that done, and then you're safe to go on. And I feel as if Rangers should be doing that tomorrow against Alloa. The manager's not going to, because he's going to rest a few players, but I still think we need to unleash against somebody that we should be unleashing against. It's almost getting to the stage of the Rangers support that pounding Alloa is more important than beating Club Brugge to get into the Champions League group stages. If Club Brugge put us out by a couple of goals over the two legs, that's fine. We're all worried they'll absolutely destroy us. But we've played, this is our 3rd domestic game, and we still haven't beaten anybody. haven't lost to anybody domestically, but we haven't beaten anybody either. And it's like, well, Dundee and Motherwell was bad enough, but this is a team that are in the Championship. Alloa, so they're in League One, I beg your pardon. They finished 5th in League One last season. This season, the only side they haven't beaten, and they've beaten everybody by a single goal. That's in 4 League Cup group games, including Dundee. They've beat Dundee 1-0 in the League Cup group phase. So they've beaten the team we couldn't beat last week in the league. So they had 4 League Cup group games, 2 league games. I think they've been away to Stenhousemuir and East Fife so far, and that's a Stirlingshire Fife derby, East Fife. So, and a a Stirlingshire derby as well. The only team they've played that they haven't beat is Stranraer in the fucking Challenge Cup. The Challenge Cup. They get beat 2-1 by Stranraer in the Challenge Cup group stage. But they're beating everybody else by a single goal away to, I think it's Bonnyrigg Rose, and they beat Montrose, they beat Airdrieonians, and they've beaten Dundee in the League Cup to get them to this point in time, to this round. Aye. I think, without in any way trying to kind of mitigate against the prevailing Rangers podcasting narrative that I helped create, in which I fully participated in Tuesday night, just going about how horrendously nervous that I was watching that game over in Plzen. That's before the mad buffering of Solid Sports. Get your £12 refund, by the way. It's just telling your receipt number. They're going to refund mine. I think their performance in Plzen was. I'm hearing it from other Rangers podcasters as well. I was kind of joking about it and all that as well, but I'm seeing other Rangers pods and hearing people talking about it, Rangers supporters saying it was the result in Plzen was awful, kind of horrible, pitiful, oleaginous, treacherous. It was filth. It was chaos unleashed. It was debauchery incarnate. It was criminally negligent, putrid, slanderous, libelous. It was rank and rotten, as well as rank rotten. And it was totally your maw. I did find myself, thinking of other such kind of European away second legs, so remarkably different from a lovely, comfortable home first leg, where we still nevertheless progress. We go through anyway. I can only come up with 2, and I'm doing this deliberately. So if you can think of other ones, you get in touch. It's engagement. I'm engagement farming. Parma in the Champions League playoff in 99-2000, where we beat them 2-0 at Ibrox. No Cannavaro gets sent off. Tony Vidmar and Claudio Reyna. That was a great night. There's the West enclosure that night. In the second leg, they absolutely, oh my God, they pummeled us. They only beat us 1-0, and we hung on and through, went to the Champions League group stages under the little general. And what was the other one? Werder Bremen. Oh, aye, Werder Bremen, Jesus. 2007, 2008. The greatest save I've ever seen from a Rangers goalkeeper. Maybe the greatest save I've ever seen. Alan McGregor in that game. But it was, 2-0 up. Tim Visa had an absolute nightmare. Their goalkeeper at Ibrox. We win that 2-0. That was, last 16. Because that one goes into the quarter final. That was Panathinaikos and Werder Bremen. Then Sporting, like green and white teams. The 3 of them in the trot. But they beat us 1-0, and it was 1-0 going on 10-0. It was just, if you remember it, you remember it. It was relentless. They absolutely battered us, and it was a fantastic performance. We dug in deep, and I say, it was Naldo, the fellow that Alan McGregor had that save from, and a fantastic reaction save. I thought, how's that guy missed that? There's only the action replays you saw. No, Griggs has actually saved it. But that was the only 2 other kind of comparable to the nervousness I was feeling the other night. But I think those were competent performances where we dug in against a real quality side. Plzen, not the best. We might meet them again. We might yet have to play them again in the Europa League, because they've dropped straight into the group stages. We might do the same. I would be confident against them if Russell Martin is just waiting for his plan to kick in, if it does go according to plan. We had Maribor and then Ufa in the last 2 rounds of that Europa League qualifying campaign, Gerrard's first, 2018-19. The home legs weren't particularly comfortable. I think it was 3-1 against Maribor and 1-0 against Ufa. And we certainly were hanging on, digging deep, really. I think that the Ufa one in particular, over in Bashkortostan, was a bit nervy. But we hadn't been that comfy, as I say, in the first leg, so I don't know how comparative they are. But yeah, it was quite... It's quite a thing. It's a really disgusting film that I've seen is 3 seasons, 1 cup. And I've seen 1 cup, 3 seasons, 1 cup. And it's this cup, the League Cup, the only one we've won in the last 3 seasons, the only major trophy we've won in the last 3 seasons. is the League Cup. We've been in the last 3 finals as well. It's the League Cup is the trophy we've won more than anybody else in Scotland. It's the easiest, quickest chance of a major trophy. And I say we won it more than anybody else, but only once since we returned to the top flight. We've been in the last 3 finals, as I say. It's another of those signs that we're heading in the right direction. No one wants to kind of acknowledge these signs, though, because it would be using 2012 as an excuse. You know, and of course, the phrase using 2012 as an excuse is the very phrase which excuses your kind of incandescent rage, understandably slow recovery from 2012, our frustration. There's a frustration at the fact that in another era, it would be Celtic. It wouldn't be Celtic that are winning everything we don't. In another era, there'd be other clubs coming in and picking. And Aberdeen picked up the Scottish Cup last season, and of course in 2021 St Johnstone picked up both the cups, 2020, 2021, but usually it's Celtic, so that adds to the frustration. Stops us seeing the fact that, you know, consolidating second place is, you know, it's abject failure in the eyes of Rangers supporters right now, but it's actually solid progress. Solid, unlike progress Niederkorn, which wasn't progress at all. Plzen at Ibrox, we didn't even notice the opposition. Versus Dundee at Ibrox, we couldn't see past the opposition. I don't think too much information going on in their heads of players. This is a common kind of idea amongst the Rangers support just now, is that I think he's mentioned it himself, Russell Martin, he's given them too much new tactical information to take on board. But the night against Plzen at Ibrox, we had that thing of, you know, just you've done it yourself, playing 5-a-sides, whatever. You're really confident. You don't even notice the opposition. You just dance past them. Away you go. You're full of verve and vigour and confidence. Whereas against Dundee, it was just completely the opposite. It was completely opposite. We couldn't. It was just, oh my God, they've set up a low block. What do we do here? You know, which was so. I'm hoping against Alloa at Ibrox, we see, you know, some of the new players and our way towards the quarter-finals. But see, it's because he's unlearning the old ways as well as teaching the new ways. Russell Martin, he isn't hiding behind, say, the fact that we're advancing in the Champions League qualifiers, but Martin's team can't defend or attack, apparently, but so what? Gio's horseshoe got us to the Europa League final and won us the Scottish Cup, and Beale's kind of overcomplication of things got us to his desperation to show folk he was a tactical genius, got us a home win against Real Betis, and he scalped Celtic 3-0 at the end of end of one season. Clement's determination to play counter-attacking football got us won the League Cup, and got us two straight rounds, missing out the round of 32, 2 seasons in a trot in the Europa League. Someone who has no discernible ability or a plan in case of Russell Martin, well, he's probably going to win us everything then, going by the logic of previous managers. We beat Alloa 5-1 at Recreation Park in Warburton's first season in charge. It was early on, and this was after a season, the previous season, where I think we'd drawn, as well as going out of the Petrofac Training Cup in horrible style to them in the semi-final in 2014-15, Ali's last in charge, Alan McCoy's last season in charge of Rangers. We also, I think we drew 3 of our games with them in the league. I think we only beat them by a single goal at Ibrox in one of the 4 league games. The rest of them were draws. And then the following season, it seemed everything's changed for the better. We scalped them 5-1 at Recreation Park. Felt like quite cathartic in the sunshine. It was a Sunday. It was live on the telly. And Gideon Zalalam was doing the old knocking the ball over his head and, you know, fancy tricks. The next day, it was disrespectful. It was disrespectful to do that to lower league players. And we're in the same league as you. We'll know that. But that's when you start thinking, oh, Rangers are back. Because the minute you start getting that kind of convoluted, pseudo-moralistic, you know, completely hypocritical, you know, we want characters in the game, we want folk to entertain, except Rangers players, when it means they're taking the piss out folk, when it means they're doing that, we thought, oh, this is good, we're on the right way, and then we beat them 4-0 at Ibrox. And the next league game, this is it, we're on our way, we're completely forgetting all about Alloa Athletic, and then we drew 1 each the next time we went to Recreation Park, and then the day we lifted the championship trophy. We sealed the league title against Dumbarton midweek at Ibrox, but then we had the big party day, our last game at Ibrox that season, which was falling to bits already ahead of the Scottish Cup final. That I think we won 2 of our last 8 league games, having won the league so early. But we drew 1 each again with Alloa. I think we equalised this time. They would usually equalise. The previous season, I think they always equalised kind of late on, Alloa at Ibrox, but this time they scored first and we equalised, but we couldn't get past them. So they kind of ruined our trophy lifting day as well. It's the black, it's the gold, it's the East Fife, it's the Cobain laid side, it's the Auchinleck Talbot, it's Penarol. It's that kind of Scottish thing, the classic Scottish colour that's it's black and gold, but it really feels like it's kind of sepia tinted. It's the old days. I think Aberdeen used to play when they played in the record crowd against Celtic in the Scottish Cup final in the 30s. They still had the black and gold kit, but you see it in black and white TV. And just, I don't know, there's a really Scottish strip, Annan Athletic. But these teams have haunted us. Annan Athletic beat us at Ibrox that first season in the league, in the 3rd division. We've had them again in the Scottish Cup and the League Cup. I think Falkirk we played endlessly, and we used to beat them all the time in the Cups. We used to keep drawing them in the Cups. They're actually back in the league, the top flight this time, so I don't know how that'll go, but I remember it's a Stirlingshire Fife thing. I remember playing against Falkirk. It was a Friday night. It was live on the telly towards the end of Warburton's first season. We're 2-0 up after about 20 minutes playing like Guardiola's Barcelona, and Falkirk beat us 3-2. It's like just that Stirlingshire Fife thing, Stirling Albion, the first lower league season we had, Stirling Albion were just every bit as cruel. They beat us at Forth Bank, and then they drew us in Forth Bank at the 2 away games against Stirling Albion in the league, and then we beat them, I think 2-0, maybe the game at Christmas time at Ibrox. But later on that season, we played them at Ibrox, a live game on the Saturday. I'd been to Scotland against Wales in the snow on the Friday night, and Wales beat Scotland 2-1. So it was the next day, because we're in a lower league. We're in the 3rd division. We don't get our game cancelled because there's going to be 8 internationals playing. But it's still live on the telly, so it was a 12 o'clock kickoff. It's like 8 o'clock kickoff on the Friday night and a 12 o'clock kickoff, and it was freezing. There was nobody there. I was in the east enclosure, and we drew 0-0 with Stirling Albion just to put it. It's Stenhousemuir. Only Elgin and Stenhousemuir stopped us winning at Ibrox in League One. Our second season in the lower leagues, we didn't lose a game in the league all season. We drew away with Dunfermline in our last away game to stop us getting a perfect record of away games in the league. So that was us in Fife. And Elgin were the first one to take points off us in the league at Ibrox, late equaliser. Then Stenhousemuir did much the same as a 3-each draw with Stenhousemuir from Stirlingshire. It's just... Look, this isn't none of this is Russell Martin's fault. And when I first went to see Heat, it's a 1995 LA crime saga. It's a film. Michael Mann directed it, and the first time I saw it, I knew nothing about it. I was with someone. I just come out of a long-term relationship, and a few months later, I was just with somebody who I shouldn't have. We shouldn't really have been together. I went to the cinema with her to watch this film, and she was now enjoying it. It was at the old ABC, Sucky Hall Street. And people were shouting at the screen. I think I've told you this before. People were shouting at the screen, for shouting at Al Pacino's acting. And it was like going to Fitba, really. But I had a disagreement about it in the pub straight afterwards. She worked in television. And she was telling me the gunshot was post production. It didn't sound like it, but she insisted it was. And it received 0 Oscar nominations. Heat, but Michael Mann stayed true to his vision. And now it's the film I've probably seen more than any other, and it's regularly cited as one of the greatest movies ever made, and it's influenced so many other pale imitations and homages on Den of Thieves, The Town, all that kind of stuff. It's the 0 Oscars thing doesn't really work, does it? That's not a very good parallel, because it's Oscars we want. That would be the equivalent of the trophies we're supposed to win. No getting a nomination, that's probably no getting to the semi-finals or the quarter-final, which is a bad omen for playing Alloa in the last 16. Russell Martin's going to be a big hit. That's what I'm trying. Russell Martin's going to be a big hit. I hope he's got things better organised than I have when it comes to my podcast. His press conference today, it was quite interesting right at the start of it, especially. He was chatting away to Rahman, quite the thing. Just being nice and open about the players that were back fit. Dessers did get an injury the other night, but it's not as bad as we thought. He won't play against Alloa, but he should be fit for Bruges on Tuesday night. Mikey Moore, Thilo Asgard and Igaman are all registered and or fit enough. They're in the squad for tomorrow, as is Max Aaron, so they all get a chance of playing. He didn't confirm they'd be starting or anything. And then he was asked about Jefte. It was Rahman that asked him about Jefte. And it was just like, what were you asking me if he's fit or not? You asked me about his fitness. What do you mean? And of course, the whole world is alight with the rumours that Jefte, the news that Jefte's basically on his way to Palmeiras in Brazil for £6 million. Nah, don't know about that. Don't know what you're talking about. So, I'll just, was it the club will update you? I don't know if it's kind of heavy, it's not my department vibes, or he was sick of answering transfer questions, but Rahman then persisted and asked him about Noble Mendy. And what about Noble Mendy? We went, who? Russell Martin, the Rangers head coach, a player we've all assumed is on the cusp of signing and has been for a month or so from Real Betis. He's like, who? What are you talking about? And I think Rahman was just like, all right. He said to him, all right, cheers. You're obviously just going to stonewall me for whatever reason. He's like, I'm not joking. He said, I've never met the guy. I've never spoken to him. You know, I don't know what he was doing there. But he later kind of made a point of talking about the support he's had from Patrick Cascane and Kevin Thelwell. It's been fantastic. I don't know if he's having a go at them. He's getting pissed off with them about not doing the transfers he wants, selling a left back when he doesn't have one to replace him or something like that. Or if he's pissed off with Rahman, who had been I don't know if he talked to the player first at presser, but it was Danilo, who's very self-effacing, very nice. And Rahman was asking him, there's a couple of times he asked him about the mentality. And of course, it's something that's been cited by Russell Martin himself, that the players have got to stop doing that thing of when you get a goal, when you score a goal in a game, like we did against Motherwell, like we did against Plzen, just suddenly deciding, no, that's it, we've done enough. Because that's what we have been doing for years. And I remember that the first time I kind of remember thinking about that consciously was, well, I've been thinking about it my whole life. I would imagine any time Rangers score a goal, then can't do anything with it. But I always feel as if it's been a thing since Graham Murty. It was his first game officially as Rangers manager against Kilmarnock at Rugby Park. It was Graham Murty at Rugby Park. And I think Josh Windus equalised for us or scored first. But we're already under pressure. It wasn't working. And we scored the goal and it's like, that'll be fine. And we get beat 2-1. You know, and it happens all. Scotty Arfield equalising against Kilmarnock midweek at Rugby Park, and that's us. It'll be fine. We get beat 2-1. So we do it all the time at Rugby Park under various managers. So it definitely is a problem. You know, but Rahman, I think he phrased it again as is the mentality an issue? And Danilo's got to answer a question on that. He's talking a second language or his seventh language or whatever it is. But I don't know if maybe the manager's heard that and thought, it's Rahman he's having a go at. He's decided to start stonewalling him and being a bit horrible to him because you're asking about the mentality of my players. No, I can say that, but you can't ask it. I don't know, but it was definitely in a bad mood when he was answering stonewalling Rahman Bargwash on very, I thought, very decent questions that we want answered as supporters. But it was interesting to watch. It was nice to see him in a proper bad mood. The manager, he wasn't saying that it was going to be. He said it won't be a completely different starting 11, but it's a chance to put some people out on the pitch, as he put it. So some second stringers are going to be coming in. We're hoping to see Asgard and Mikey Moore and Igaman as a support, obviously. Some new guys will be in the pitch. Queen's Park was again stonewalled it. No, this is a different journalist asked this question. Last time they played a lower league team in a domestic cup, their last domestic cup match was the loss to Queen's Park, a historic loss. But he was like, no, it's gone. Last season, Russell Martin just said we should park it. It was no benefit in him bringing it up. It was nothing to do with him, basically. He's been really enjoying training with the players. So I thought it was that way he's getting himself so ready to shut down any negativity. And he also had the Andy Halliday thing, Andy Halliday comments in mind, that he was just quite embattled without any great need to be. He's saying our players need to have, like Asgard and Mikey Moore, he's excited about them because they've got the courage to take the ball, which seems to be how our midfield seems to be missing all the time, because we need players who are going to take the ball and move with it properly the way he obviously wants them to. He obviously thinks that's the problem. The players just aren't doing what they're told. We need strength and depth. We need competition for places, so the more players we can get into the squad, the better. Hamza Igaman, he wasn't exactly... He was saying he's a great player. It's great to work with him and all that. He's really interesting, but it's taken a while. He had the visa problems that stopped him getting over here, and we kind of emphasised to me, it felt like an emphasis. He's looking forward to seeing how he can fit into the structure of the team. So we might have another Nico Raskin situation here as a player I thought was going to be sold by now because he's just such a good player. But not only is he not going to get sold, but we're not going to fit him into the team. He doesn't fit into the manager's system. So fair play, Russell Martin. He's not doing favourites. He's not trying to curry favour with the fans with these kind of cheap moves. You don't fit into his system. That's it. You're out. Coming up against low blocks. He's getting asked that was getting put to him in a kind of pointed way because the fans obviously are raging about it. So fan media wants to know, are you going to be able to beat somebody with a low block? But it was a good learning. It was good learning for him and his coaching staff to come up against Dundee's low block. We all think obviously he should have known about it because he's watched the videos of his last season. But it's up to the opposition how they want to set up, according to Russell Martin. So it's the pressure he gets. It brings opportunity. It sounded like he was knocking out all the kind of jargon, all the catchphrases, all the motivationals, but the energy around this place for a while, and he didn't finish the sentence. I think it's been bad. There's been bad energy around this place. So he's just about focusing and working, and if you do that properly, you're going to get the results eventually. We're turning the tanker around, a maintenance guy at Ibrox had shouted at him the other day, a guy who's been there for years. The tank or the tanker, I don't know, but the idea is it takes a while for the thing to turn around. He thought this was a great phrase. The problem you've got there, Russell Martin, is now everybody's going to think if they shout a great phrase at you, you're going to sound check them in the podcast. I'll certainly, you've got a few great phrases shouted at you, I would imagine, from the enclosure tomorrow, but we've got to get better about what we're doing every day. This is one of his other phrases. Don't let the external noise get to us. It's part of being at a big club. It's a privilege to get in this abuse because that's just part of playing for Rangers. And he's talking about this is him starting to talk about the Andy Halliday thing. I'd never even heard it. I still can't find it. I'm not going to watch a PLZ soccer or whatever it is they're on, open football, because they're absolutely horrendous at times, those pods. I'm not interested in them, but apparently Andy Halliday said something about our midfield. And people are wanting him to fall out, but he's going to was a list of people. There's a lot of people at Ibrox who've been there for a while and are unhappy about the way things have been done, and he's trying to install best practices. It sounds like he's trying to just install best practices and in areas that have been neglected. There's like a professionalism about him. He's going to be kind of relentless in doing that. It's just me wondering if he's going to get the time. But he got a bit. Somebody saying, "Well, what about what Andy Halliday was saying?" He said, "I've just answered that. I'm just telling you what we're doing." He made a big point about the fact he doesn't care, which is always kind of self-defeating, about what Andy Halliday had said. He's saying he's a former teammate of Andy's. He's going to have a coffee with him in the West End. So that's me. I'm walking going, I have a coffee in the West End every now and then. I'll maybe go and try and... But I never got Kate Mantalini's where, De Niro and Pacino have the famous coffee shop scene in Heat. That's not there anymore. So I could finally maybe get along there and see them having that coffee, McNeil for 7 years, Folsom for 7 years, McNeil before that. McNeil, as tough as they say. You're looking to become a penologist. You're looking to go back. I've watched some crews, guys just looking to fuck up and get sent back to prison. You must have watched some dipshit crews. I watched all kinds. Do you see me doing thrill seeker liquor store hold-ups with a Born to Lose tattoo in my chest? No, I do not. Well, I don't play with inverted fullbacks either. I never said I play with inverted fullbacks. So Andy was wrong about that. I'm looking forward to seeing that cup of coffee being had. There was in a wee bit, if you've watched it like me, or the Rangers TV official YouTube channel, the press conference, it's like 12 minutes long. Rangers Review, they obviously film it as well, and it's about 13 odd minutes long. Watch that, because there's an extra bit at the end. It's like a DVD extra, where somebody shouts a question at him as he's leaving the table, and he comes back and tries to do a funny answer. It's a question about the pressure getting to you. Is it hard to deal with that kind of pressure? And he's like, yeah, it is. He's kind of self-deprecating, but it doesn't take, and he just starts answering the question. He sits back down, and he was saying to cope with the pressures at Ibrox, and his team, to make them better, basically. We've got to be really consistent in the process here. We've got to be really consistent in our behaviour. We've got to be really consistent in what we're asking them to do, and that's him and his coaching staff he's talking about. And then we will hopefully see that consistency on the pitch. So this is obviously, he's just going to keep battling on. He says, I've been in this situation at every club we've been at. That's him and his coaching team. That's why I can sit here calmly and tell you what I think is going to happen next. I told the players to trust the process, and I can see them growing into the culture that we're trying to build. It's trust the process. That's what it is. Trust the process. And if there's one support in the world that doesn't trust the process, it's that we just trust winning. We trust winning, and eventually we'd only trust winning by a few goals. We are one of the most demanding supporters on the planet, and they're not trusting the process just now. But I still do. When it comes to Russell Martin, he was edgy today at that point. I think he's edgy all the time. I think he's bubbling under. He's simmering at a kind of, quite a high heat, a medium heat all the time. Russell Martin is ready to go. He's doing it again today. Even when he wasn't stonewalling Rahman, he's answering the questions before the journalists have finished asking them all the time. But it's the process. It's the process. This is the way it was at Southampton. It was at Swansea. So this is what he thinks it's going to be as well. And that should be the end of this pod. But of course, I've got a wee postscript to you. The time I did get to, my mate and I went back to Recreation Park. I don't know if we went back to that same pub. I don't remember it. In Alloa, and it was later on that season, because I looked this up in my Footballogy app, and it was April 2000. April 2000, we went back and we saw Alloa Athletic at Recreation Park beating Stranraer 4-0 in Division 2, the second division, as was the third tier. I remember watching Andy Walker scoring a Panenka penalty. I think he only played about 8 games for Alloa, and this was one of his goals. He scored this Panenka penalty right at the end. Andy Walker's 60 now, so that shows you how long ago it was. But it was April 2000, and that's 3.5 years before Jefte, Vital, Da Silva, Diaz was born. And that day we were beating Dundee. Rangers were beating Dundee United 2-0 at Tannadice. Effectively, I think Celtic slipped up the following Saturday, and the Sunday was the day we went to Perth. We beat St Johnstone 2-0, the 2 Billy Dodds goals. We were celebrating. We're celebrating another title, so I think Celtic must have slipped up. I think they drew with Hibs at Parkhead on the Saturday, and that was us. We'd been handed the title, but maybe because of our experience in that pub in Alloa, the previous time we'd been there, and the sun was out. And it was April. It was a lovely day. Everything worked out fine. It was lovely to go to Recreation Park, Alloa. But we went back into Stirling, and that's what you did. You would go to Stirling. Obviously, we went to see Stirling Albion, got to see Stenhousemuir and all that, but you ended up back in Stirling, if we get the train back to Queen Street. We got a few beers in Stirling, and it was in a place called, and again, I don't know if it's still this, it's Nicky Tam's Bar in Bothy. I looked it up just to remind myself a day. It's in Baker Street, Jerry Rafferty and all that. But it's Nicky Tam's Bar in Bothy. I don't know if it was called that then. I imagine it was, because it's like this 300-year-old boozer, and it's haunted as well. So it's supposed to be haunted. And the thing I remember is sitting there, it says we've got Alloa. I don't know if it was a day that I'd done the lot. It was certainly something I'd hit a milestone in the ground hopping, because not getting to Recreation Park, earlier that season I'd scored off a few other ones, and I don't know if that was me. I'd done the lot that day or whatever, but I remember sitting having a few beers. Just we'd really enjoyed our day, quite satisfactory in Nicky Tam's, and they were playing Nirvana Unplugged. I think it's a place that's a reputation for live music, but that day they were playing Nirvana, the MTV Unplugged session, and it was phenomenal. I hadn't heard it for years. This is 2000, I think that was 1996 or 1994. I looked it up earlier, I've forgotten, but it was in the 90s anyway, and this was April 2000, a few years later, and I hadn't heard it for ages, Nirvana, and it's their cover, the Bowie cover, the man who sold the world starts down the round. It's like it's supposed to be acoustic, obviously Unplugged, and that was the most electronic, twangy effect on his acoustic guitar. Kurt Cobain, who was by this point now dead, so it was like the ghost, a voice of a guy who is no longer with us, even at that point, and he's talking about, we passed up on the stairs. As I'm going up and down, there's wee stairs in Nicky Tam's up the side when you go up to the toilet, and you're passing ghosts as you go up and down these stairs. And I remember I looked up MTV Unplugged the day, and it was recorded in Hell's Kitchen. The Unplugged session was Hell's Kitchen, New York, and this was 2000, so this was like 2.5 years before I went to New York. I went to New York in September 2002. So I went to New York. I've been there a couple of times now, but the first time I went, I've only been since the Twin Towers fell, and been to Berlin about 4 times, all after the fall of the wall, and here I was this day, in Nicky Tam's Bothy. It's like a pre-lapse Syrian idol with Rangers clinching their 11th title in 12 years, all under the man who sold the world for £1, David Murray. And Alloa was still coming for me. I didn't realise at that point in time. I was sitting there having my pints. I feel totally arrogant now listening to, Kurt Cobain talking about Lead Belly and a song by the Vaselines, of course, on that album, a Glasgow band. But they'd haunt me. Alloa would haunt me, like Nicky Tam's, the ghosts of pubs rather than a pub ghost. Alloa breweries, absolutely dog shit. But sink them tomorrow, Rangers. Absolutely sink them. Exorcise that ghost. Crush them in a way that's just going to... What? We've signed an agreement with them to take on all our academy players. We've signed an agreement with Alloa Athletic to take on all our academy... Oh no, some of them are going to Wraith Rovers, who put us at the Scottish Cup and the final of the Petrifac. I mean, on Stirling Albion, who beat us at the miserable season against them, the 4 league games. And it's... I suppose it's... Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer, or maybe that journey is long over. Aloha, Alloa.